Okay, so for Wednesday, one of your homeworks is to paint a 9-step value scale. Okay, so if you have taken drawing 1 or drawing 2, you should have done this already with pencil. Okay, it's a little bit different with oil paints, but it's a very important step, a very important basic step. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to make one, and I've already actually made one. Okay, here, right? But before you do this, obviously you should get your paints and then get a palette, your paint brushes, etc., and also prepare a gessoed surface. Okay, and it may take you a few tries. Okay, so your first try, like, don't put it smack in the middle. At least put it in the top, and then if you mess up, just do it 2 to 3 more times on the bottom. Okay, but let's review what a value scale is. Okay, so what is value? Okay, value is how light or how dark something is, a surface is. Okay. And a value scale shows kind of the progressive steps from light to dark or dark to light. Okay, there's no blending, it's not a gradient. It's one step that progressively gets lighter or darker than the step before or after it. Okay, so for example here, it starts with just white, and then it gets a little darker, a little darker, a little darker, a little darker. You can see that there are distinctive squares or steps, and each one is darker than the next. Okay, and this one's just going to be pure black. Okay. So how light or how dark something is. Why is value so important? Value is important to show volume or dimensionality on a 2-dimensional surface. Okay, and that's how we show, like I said, volume when we paint our still lifes and such. And it's so important to be able to be aware of values. And the value scale that we'll be painting, like I said, is a 9-step value scale. Literally, you can go on the internet, type in 9-step value scale, and find an example and just copy it exactly. Except you won't be doing it on the computer, you'll be painting it, so it's a little bit different. But use this as a guideline. Okay, so I printed one out, and this is my guideline. Okay. All right, so in order to get started, you need to set up. Got my water cup. Don't drink this. This is my homemade palette. One thing that I will warn you about with this aluminum foil is that because it isn't white, it's hard to see the color sometimes. So when I was making this value scale, it looked very different from when I actually put the paints onto this white surface. Okay, so I thought it was pretty light, but when I put it here, it was really dark. So I think that's one of the reasons why it may be worth it to get just a white disposable palette or a glass palette with a white surface beneath it. Okay, got my water soluble oil paints, water soluble or water mixable. It's worth getting a large tube of white. This is 200 ml, and this is 200 ml of ivory black. With black, you won't need so much, so maybe you can get a smaller one, maybe half the size or a third of this size, because we won't be using a lot of black the next month and may move on to color, because I actually discourage you from using black to darken your colors. Okay, and I have my paintbrush, and I also have my napkin, my paper towel that I'll be using to wipe off excess paint. This is actually kind of wasteful, so if you have a rag, like old socks, old t-shirt, they just rip up into little pieces, a towel, anything that will save you from using these, because these can be pricey. Another thing, if you wipe these with oil, these are flammable, so if you leave it out in the air, it may catch on fire. So please be careful, dispose of these quickly, or if you have to leave them out, put them in an airtight container, preferably metal. But what I do usually is I will wrap them in a paper bag so that there's no air, and then I will put it in like a metal canister or a can and just leave it. And then if I want to use it again, I'll just use it. Or like a plastic container, airtight plastic container. Okay, but this is for the protection of yourself as well as your family and anyone who comes into your house. Okay, so I got my surface ready, so I'm all ready. This isn't actually like my work desk, so it's kind of like a nice desk. I would put like a old towel or linen on top of it. Okay, so squeeze out some paint. Squeeze out some paint, and don't be too, be a little bit generous, because these are like your first exercises. You don't want to limit yourself. I know it's expensive, but it's important that you be generous to yourself in the beginning. It's okay to mess up. You're not being super wasteful if you end up messing up and you have to throw it away. This is worth you getting better and learning how to use the paint. Okay, so I'm gonna start with light and then go dark slowly and mix everything on the palette first, and then apply that onto my volume scale on my canvas. So the first box is just gonna be white. So I'm gonna I don't need a lot, because like I said, my squares are really small, so I just need a little bit for each square. So like that's enough. And you will, the more you use paint, like the more you'll kind of be able to control how much paint you need and know like, oh, this much of paint, this much, like covers this much of a surface and such. So I just need like this much literally. And then it's gonna be just a little bit darker than the first square, so I'm gonna add like a tiny teensy bit of black. Like, this is when I kind of have to focus. Okay, so that's all I'm gonna add, okay? And I only need 9 steps, and let's say like it's still not dark enough by the time I get to my 8th box. It's okay, just keep getting darker and then pick and choose like the progressive values that you need, okay? Think of it as trial and error. You can't do this right the first time. That's okay, okay? So I'm gonna add a little bit more black. Okay, let's see how that goes, and then add a little bit more black. That's a little bit too much. Oops. Okay, so that looks a little bit dark, so I'm gonna add some more white. And like I said, it looks very different here to here, so I am probably going to have to adjust as I paint on my canvas. When you're mixing with the palette knife, it's gonna feel a little bit awkward, but basically you're mixing the paint using this this flat side of the knife, and when you kind of get more urgent and rushed and you're like, I need to make this color, you get kind of more impatient and you apply more force, and sometimes it can break, so that's where a metal one comes in handy. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a little dark. That got a little bit too dark, too light, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nine is just black, but it seems like maybe like these two are too similar or these two are too similar, so I'm gonna add one more step and take one of these out. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, this is my 8th one, so it's gonna be pretty dark. Okay, so let's try this out, and then 9 will just be this pure black. Okay, I'm gonna grab my paper towel. Just gonna wipe this excess paint off like this. Okay, and it's just clean. You don't have to wash it with soap or anything. Okay, just wrap it up. Okay, so I'm gonna start with white. Make sure my brush is clean and it doesn't have any paint on it. Okay, and then wipe all the excess water off. Okay, just gonna make sure that I'm recording. Okay, so I'm recording. So the first time I actually made this volume scale, I recorded, but then like it stopped. So like I didn't record anything. Like I only recorded like a minute. So let's make a volume scale. I need 9 boxes. Okay, make this nice and neat, please. I might mess up again, so I'm gonna make it pretty close to the one that I first did. Okay, like let yourself make mistakes. You know, if you have to try again, try again. Okay, for me this might take me 20 minutes, but you know, I am kind of rushing because I don't want you to have to sit for an hour to see me make me paint a volume scale. But for you, I mean, let it take hour or 2 hours, you know? Do a good job. Give yourself time to learn and process, okay? Don't expect things to just come easily. And I apologize, like, if I make it seem really quick and easy sometimes, but that shouldn't be how your, well, everyone is different, but it's not the same for everyone, okay? So just so you know. So I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and just number it 1 to 9. Okay, so the first box is just white. You don't have to mix in water, but if you do, the paint seems like pretty spreadable, but if you want to make it a little thinner, just dab a little bit of water and then just make sure that the whole swatch of paint is consistent. Okay, it's not just watering on a little bit of it. Okay, even though it's just white, just put the white down. Okay, be nice and neat and gentle. Okay, so that's my white. I'm going to wipe off the white excess paint. Wash my paintbrush. Wipe off the excess water. Make sure there's no pigment coming off on my white napkin. Move on to the next volume. Now this one might be too light. I have to check. Okay, so that one looks good actually. It looks really light here, but here is actually darker, and I'll show you. I might actually want to make it a little tiny bit darker. Water. Yeah, that looks good. So, paint is, there are 3 basic components to paint. For oil paint, well, for all paints, it's pigment, binder, and solvent. Okay, pigment is usually in a powder form, and it's the component of paint that provides color. That one's a little light, so I'm going to add a little bit of dark. Pigment is what creates color. So let's say red paint, cadmium red. It's whatever, it would be red pigment with the binder that makes the paint like gloopy. It holds the pigment together. And for oil paint, it's oil, linseed oil, usually. Yeah, this one seems pretty similar. So, and then the solvent is what you use to thin out the paint. And for oils, the solvent can vary, okay? For water mixable oils, obviously it's water, and then sometimes you can use water mixable oil mediums, which kind of is really weird because like it's water and oil and they usually don't mix. But for water soluble, for regular oil paints, it's going to be turpentine, terpenoid, paint thinner, linseed oil, poppy seed oil, oil. Looks like this one's a little bit too light, but this one. So as I'm working on this, I'm adjusting, but I'm just making sure like the next step is slightly darker than the step before it. And so far I think I'm doing okay, but this one seems like, I think I got a little bit dark too quickly. But never add white and try to mix it onto your canvas. It's gonna leave the white streaky, and it's always better to mix the white on your palette first before you add it onto the canvas. That's a little dark. For watercolors, there's pigment. Binder is, I think, gum arabic, and then the solvent would be water. Okay, you thin it down with water. Okay. So make sure you make each step distinct and clean cut. Okay, I don't want any blending of volume steps in between. Okay, that looks good. This is what I have so far, and like I said, like I might have to adjust as I'm adjusting as I am applying this here. Okay, this one. The one thing I like about oil paints is that it spreads really nicely and smoothly. Be careful that you don't thin out your paints too much, because you want each application, each volume step to be as flat and smooth as possible, okay? The point of this exercise is to show volume, not to show brush strokes or paint application. Okay, that one looks a little bit dark, so I'm gonna see. Okay, that looks a little better. Go to. I feel like I got dark too quickly. This one looks a little bit dark. Another thing you may notice about oil paints is that depending on the color, it may darken or lighten as it dries. So you might put a color down for your still life or something, and then once it dries, you find out that like it looks different because it looks lighter or darker. And that's also something like you will get used to as you get to know how to, get to know the different paints. It also depends on the brand of paint and the quality of paint. Okay, so these look very similar, so I'm just gonna add a little more black. this one a little bit better. Okay, and then this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so this one is a little bit watery, so I'm gonna add a little bit and try this again. Okay, this is what I have, which looks a little messy in the back. So here, as you can see, it gets very similar here. So, I think maybe here, number 4 and 5, I can lighten up just a teeny bit, okay? I think I got dark too quickly. And if it gets frustrating, like you find that you have to adjust a lot, then I would recommend starting over and just trying it again and again until you get it. See, these look very similar. This one looks not too. One way to, if you're always looking at it like this, it's going to be hard like this, like up close. It's sometimes hard to see the values. So one way to kind of help you with seeing if the values, you know, progressively get lighter or darker is to look at it from far away. Okay, that will help you. It looks okay, but 7 and 8 are very close. Okay. So I would check, and if that happens, I would do it again, okay? So I would do it again until I get it right, okay? But even me, I have trouble and I make mistakes, and it's just trying and trying, okay? 9-step value scales are hard because it is a lot of steps, 9, 10 steps. It is hard, harder than like 5 or 7, okay? But please try your best, okay? Please let me know if you have questions. Once you're done with this, okay, wipe your paintbrush off on your rag, wipe off all the pigment, and then wash your brush in water, okay? Wipe off as much pigment as possible. Grab some dish soap or regular soap, and then rub your paintbrush in the soap, and then rinse it, okay? And all the pigment will come out onto the soap. That's the best way to clean brushes. And just let it air dry. Like wipe the excess water and let it air dry. Okay? All right, very good.